Have you ever opened the fridge, stared at something sitting on the shelf, and thought, wait a minute, is this even supposed to be in here? You're not the only one. We've all done it. You buy bananas, toss them in the fridge without thinking. You slide the bread next to the eggs because there's space. You keep tomatoes cold so they don't spoil too fast. But here's the thing. Sometimes, trying to keep food fresh actually does the opposite. And when you're older, when your digestion slows down, your immune system isn't what it used to be, and your body reacts more sensitively to bad bacteria or missing nutrients, that simple little oops in the fridge. It can cause bloating, stomach cramps, a weakened appetite, even food poisoning. It's not about being dramatic, it's about being informed. So let me ask you, wouldn't you want to know if the way you've been storing food is doing more harm than good? Wouldn't it bring peace of mind to know which foods actually lose their value in the fridge, and which ones must be kept cold to protect your health? Because in this video, we're walking through 4 foods you should never refrigerate, and 4 you absolutely must. And I promise you, number 4 on both lists will catch you off guard. If you've been doing this for years, storing food the way your parents did or just out of habit, today might flip a switch for you. So before we dive in, let me ask. Have you ever second-guessed what belongs in the fridge? If you have, type cold or not in the comments. I want to hear from you. And if you care about health, aging well, and protecting your body with practical everyday wisdom, tap that subscribe button right now. This is ElderTalks Daily, and you're exactly where you need to be. You know, Mrs. Geraldine made the kind of tomato soup that warmed your whole soul. Thick, aromatic, rich with flavor. But lately, she said something felt off. The tomatoes tasted bland, almost sour. She thought maybe the brand had changed. Or maybe she had changed. But the truth? She'd started keeping her tomatoes in the fridge. Now, that may seem harmless, even logical. But here's the science behind it. Cold air damages the tomato's internal structure. It breaks down the cell walls, softens the flesh, and strips away that natural juiciness. And for seniors, whose taste buds aren't as sharp as they once were, every bit of flavor matters. You take that away, and food just doesn't feel worth eating anymore. Most people think refrigeration equals preservation. But not with tomatoes. You're not extending shelf life, you're erasing the experience of eating them. The sweetness disappears. The texture turns mealy. The nutrients don't hit the same. And for someone who already struggles with appetite, that might be the difference between eating and skipping another meal. So here's the fix: keep ripe tomatoes out of the fridge. Place them on the counter, stem side down. Keep them away from direct sunlight and don't pile them on top of each other. Let them breathe. Let them ripen. Let them taste like they're supposed to taste. Because something that's meant to nourish the body shouldn't be robbed of its essence. Now, while tomatoes are better off outside the fridge, there's one pantry mistake that can make you very sick, especially if you're over 60. Let's talk about rice. Mr. Leon was a strong, no-fuss kind of man. He grew up during harder times, when leftovers weren't just reheated, they were respected. So when he made rice for dinner, he left the pot on the stove overnight, just like he always had. Next day, he warmed it up, made a quick lunch, and by sunset, he was doubled over in pain. Stomach cramps, nausea, cold sweats. He thought it was the meat. Or maybe he overate. But the truth? It was the rice. See, rice is tricky. Once it's cooked, it becomes a breeding ground for something called Bacillus cereus, a bacteria that doesn't always die when reheated. It leaves behind toxins. Invisible. Tasteless. But dangerous. Especially for seniors, whose bodies don't fight back like they used to. Now here's the kicker: most people don't know this. They think as long as you zap it in the microwave, it's fine. But if the rice sat too long at room temp before refrigeration, you're playing Russian roulette with your gut. Here's what to do instead: once rice is cooked, cool it down within an hour, and straight into the fridge it goes. Store it in a shallow container. Don't let it sit in a deep pot or warm pan. Eat it within 48 hours, max. And always reheat it thoroughly, until it's piping hot. Because for something so small and simple, rice can turn into a silent threat. Mrs. Eliza prided herself on her Sunday roast. Crispy potatoes, golden brown, fluffy on the inside. Her grandchildren swore it was better than any restaurant. But lately, her roasted potatoes came out strange. Too dark. Too sweet. She started blaming the oven. But the real culprit? The fridge. When you store raw potatoes in cold temperatures, something happens at the chemical level: starch turns into sugar. And when those sugary potatoes hit high heat, baking, frying, roasting, they produce a compound called acrylamide. It's not just bitter tasting. In large amounts over time, it's linked to serious health concerns. That's not something you want on a senior's plate. Now here's the misconception: people think cold keeps root veggies firm and fresh. But not potatoes. The cold actually causes them to develop that weird, overly sweet flavor. And for anyone managing blood sugar, insulin sensitivity, or even early-stage kidney issues, that matters. So what's the right move? Store your potatoes in a cool, dark place, like a pantry or cupboard. Not too warm, not in direct light, and definitely not in the fridge. Give them air circulation, and keep them away from onions. They release gases that spoil each other faster. Sometimes, the old school ways were right all along. Potatoes? They just want to breathe. No fridge required. But next up is the opposite. One type of food that you must keep cold, because when it goes bad, it goes fast, and silently. Let's talk leafy greens. Mr. Calvin had a routine: morning walks, afternoon news, evening salad with baby spinach. But one week, he left his greens out after grocery shopping. 2 days later, he opened the bag and the smell hit first. Then came the bloating. The nausea. What seemed like a little forgetfulness, led to a full-blown intestinal storm. Leafy greens, spinach, lettuce, kale, they're delicate. And when left at room temperature, even for just a few hours, they become a breeding ground for bacteria. Especially Listeria and E. coli. Those names aren't just scary. They're dangerous. And for older adults with weakened digestion or a history of gut issues, the effects hit harder, and last longer. Here's where many go wrong: they bring home groceries, unload them, and leave the greens on the counter, just for a bit. Then life gets busy. The phone rings. The bag stays out. By the time it hits the fridge, the damage has begun. Here's your safeguard: refrigerate leafy greens immediately. Keep them in a dry part of the crisper drawer, ideally inside a breathable produce bag. And never wash them before storing: moisture speeds up spoilage. Wash only what you'll eat right before your meal. Because what was meant to fuel your body with vitamins, can turn harmful if forgotten on the counter. Now this next one, you might have done it just this week. You sliced a piece, sealed the bag, and thought, I'll just pop it in the fridge so it doesn't go stale. Sounds reasonable, right? But when it comes to bread, that instinct could be ruining both the taste and the texture, and even causing seniors to eat less without knowing why. Ms. Ruth loved her toast in the morning, just a simple slice with butter and jam. But recently, her toast was crumbly. Dry. Almost stale, even though the loaf wasn't expired. Her appetite dipped. She stopped finishing breakfast. And as someone managing both weight loss and low energy, that mattered. Why was it happening? It wasn't the bread itself. It was the fridge. When you refrigerate bread, it speeds up a process called starch retrogradation. That's a fancy way of saying the moisture inside the bread starts to migrate and harden, making it go stale faster, not slower. You might be trying to protect it from mold, but what you're really doing is killing its softness and taste. Now here's the mistake: people refrigerate bread thinking they're extending its life. But for seniors, who often have weaker teeth, reduced saliva, or trouble chewing, hard, crumbly bread becomes a choking risk, or simply too unpleasant to eat. So what's the fix? Store bread in a cool, dry place, like a bread box or pantry. If you won't finish it within 4 to 5 days, slice it and freeze it. The freezer actually does preserve texture, and you can toast slices straight from frozen. So remember this: bread belongs in bellies, not the back of the fridge. But next up, something you should keep cold. And not doing so could be risking a bacterial infection you can't see, smell, or taste. Let's talk about eggs. Mrs. Deborah had just come back from visiting her niece in France. She noticed something curious: eggs were sold on shelves, not refrigerated. So when she got home to the States, she thought, well, if they can do it, so can I. She left her eggs on the counter. A week later, she ended up in the ER, weak, dehydrated, and dizzy. It wasn't the flu. It was salmonella. Here's what most people don't realize: in the US, eggs are washed and sanitized before they're sold. That process removes a natural coating that protects the egg from bacteria. Without it, eggs must be kept cold, or they become a silent threat. The mistake: assuming what works in one country works everywhere. In Europe, eggs are handled differently. In the US, refrigeration isn't optional, it's essential. Especially for seniors, whose immune systems may not recover as quickly from foodborne illnesses. So here's what you do: always store your eggs in the fridge, preferably in the back, where the temperature stays consistent. Don't keep them in the door, it's too warm with all the opening and closing. And never leave them out on the counter, just for a bit. Because that bit might be the very moment bacteria starts to multiply. Eggs can be a powerful source of protein for seniors, but only when stored safely. Now, let's talk about bananas. Bright yellow, sweet, easy to eat. A perfect snack for older adults, soft, rich in potassium, and gentle on digestion. But if you've ever stuck them in the fridge and noticed they turn black almost overnight, you're about to understand exactly why. Mr. Walter was trying to be smart. He bought a whole bunch of bananas, on sale, of course. But by day 3, the peels were black and blotchy. He figured they'd gone bad, so he tossed them. That happened twice before he realized something: it wasn't the bananas, it was the fridge. See, bananas are tropical fruits. They were never built for the cold. When you put them in the fridge before they've fully ripened, the cold interrupts the natural ripening process. It damages the skin cells, causing them to darken rapidly. And inside, the texture changes. The flavor becomes dull. Seniors with sensitive taste buds or low appetite, they lose interest fast. Now here's the mistake. People think the fridge will pause ripening. But with bananas, it doesn't pause, it disrupts. That rich, creamy sweetness seniors love, gone. And what's left is a black peel and a mushy inside most people throw away. So what's the best move? Let bananas ripen at room temperature. Only once they're fully ripe can you refrigerate them, if you need to stretch them a few more days. The peel might still darken, but the inside will stay sweet and fresh. And one more tip: overripe bananas, don't toss them. Freeze them for smoothies or mash them into oatmeal. Because wasted bananas are just missed opportunities for good nutrition. But speaking of perishables, this next group is non-negotiable. Dairy products. milk, yogurt, cheese. If you leave these out too long, the consequences can be ugly. Ms. Florence was hosting brunch. Coffee, toast, a little cream cheese for the bagels. She left everything out while chatting with her daughter. And didn't return the dairy to the fridge until the guests had left, 4 hours later. By evening, she felt off. The next morning, nausea, diarrhea, a fever that wouldn't break. The culprit? Spoiled dairy. Dairy doesn't play games. It's one of the most sensitive food categories when it comes to temperature. Leave it out too long, and it becomes a playground for bacteria, like Listeria, Salmonella, and E. coli. And for seniors, especially those with a history of food sensitivities or weakened immunity, this isn't just an upset stomach. It can lead to dehydration, hospitalization, or worse. Now here's the common mistake, thinking, I'll put it back soon. But soon becomes later. And later becomes dangerous. The advice? Return all dairy to the fridge within 30 minutes of use. Whether it's milk, sour cream, shredded cheese, or yogurt, don't leave it out while you eat. Grab what you need, then return the rest immediately. And make sure your fridge is cold enough, below 40 degrees Fahrenheit 4 degrees Celsius. Because dairy left out is a risk that grows by the minute. Let's take a breath together for a moment. Because I know, this might feel like a lot. You go through life doing what you were taught, what seemed right. Putting tomatoes in the fridge, leaving bread on the shelf, grabbing a banana on the go. And then one day, you hear something like this, and it makes you question everything. Not just the food, but the habits. The quiet little routines that fill your kitchen, your mornings, your plate. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not alone. These aren't just food tips. These are health protectors. Because when you reach a certain age, it's not about trends or fancy diets, it's about safety, simplicity, sustaining strength. The truth is, no one hands you a manual for how to take care of an aging body. You're left to figure it out while juggling medications, doctor visits, energy levels, and more. So when someone tells you that rice can poison you if it's left out, or that your beloved morning toast is drying out your appetite, it can feel like the rug's being pulled out from under you. But here's what I want you to remember, you're not behind. You're not doing it all wrong. You're learning, right now, how to turn small habits into powerful protection. So don't feel guilt for what you didn't know. Feel proud that you're here. That you care. That you want better. For yourself, or for someone you love. And maybe the most beautiful part. It doesn't take a huge life overhaul. You don't need to flip your diet or buy expensive gadgets. Just, look in the fridge. Make one small shift. One adjustment. Move the tomatoes. Chill the rice. Check the greens. Protect the dairy. Because love doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it comes in quiet care. In the way you store a meal. In the way you make someone feel safe, without them even realizing it. And if no one's told you this lately, you're doing a good job. You're showing up. And you're making a difference. Let's take a moment to recap everything we uncovered today. There are 4 foods seniors should never refrigerate: tomatoes, potatoes, bread, and bananas. They lose flavor, turn toxic, or become hard to digest when stored the wrong way. And then there are the 4 you absolutely must keep cold: cooked rice, leafy greens, eggs, and dairy. Because when left out, they don't just spoil. They become risky. Silent. Sometimes dangerous. But this isn't about fear. It's about confidence. It's about knowing that the little things, like where you place a bag of spinach or how quickly you chill your rice, can have a big impact on health, strength, and safety. So now I want to hear from you. Be honest, which of these did you get wrong? Which one surprised you? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and I love learning how these videos are helping you or someone you care about. And hey, if this video opened your eyes, made you nod your head, or made you rethink your fridge for even a second, give it a thumbs up. It lets YouTube know this matters. That our elders matter. And it helps us reach more people who need this kind of practical, loving advice. And if you haven't already, subscribe to ElderTalks Daily. Because every week, we bring you real, relatable guidance for aging well. Tips that make sense. Stories that feel familiar. And a voice that walks beside you, not ahead of you. Thank you for watching. For listening. For caring. Until next time, stay wise, stay well, and stay exactly who you are. Because aging isn't about slowing down. It's about getting smarter with every step.